Morning Year 6 and welcome to Thursday's reading lesson. Today we're going to be looking at a picture book called Moth by Isabel Thomas. I'm not going to read the book to you today, Isabel Thomas is, and there is a link to her video on YouTube on the school blog. So, as we've done for the past couple of days, pause the video here, click on the link and watch the video on YouTube. Once you've done that and read along with it with the text in your packs, come back and unpause. Excellent. So, before we move on, let's have a look at some of the vocabulary that was used in Isabel Thomas's book. The first one is adaptation. Now, when I first looked at this, I thought that change and adaptation were the same thing, but actually they're a little bit different. Change is when something changes completely, but adaptation is when something changes a little bit to suit their environment or to suit where they are. The second word is charcoal. Charcoal is a substance made when you burn heat at a really high temperature with little oxygen, and you end up with a black substance like this. People use it to draw with, and now it's even used in toothpaste and face creams and things like that because it's got great qualities. The last word is lichen covered branches. So we know that lichen covered is a compound adjective, two words joined together. So we know that something called lichen is covering the branches. This is what lichen is. Lichen is a type of fungus that sticks to branches in the forest. Knowing the meaning of these will help us understand the story a little bit better. Moving on. Here are your quick start questions. Like we've done before, pause the video now, have a go at answering the questions, quick retrieval, and then come back and unpause so we can go over the answers. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So, the story started with a little what? It started with a little moth. Name one of the moth's predators. Couple that you could have mentioned were bats and hungry chicks. Name one thing that made the world darker. So factories were built, there was smoke, there was soot and there was pollution, and this all made the world a darker place. And finally, why were there more charcoal covered moths? There were more charcoal covered moths because the world was darker, so they didn't get eaten by predators as much as the peppered coloured moths. Next question then. What advice would you give to a peppered moth? Using the text and what you know about peppered moths and how they camouflage themselves and what predators they have, what advice would you give? Pause the video here, write your answer and then join us when you've finished. Brilliant. So what advice would you give a peppered coloured moth? You could tell them to find the trees that were covered in lichen. Why? Because this would help them camouflage more so they wouldn't get eaten by predators. Remember, the peppered coloured moth got eaten by predators when the world turned darker and they couldn't camouflage themselves as well. Next question then. Why were the moth's wings described as salt and pepper? So here are actual salt and pepper. Why did the author use that to describe the wings? Pause the video, answer the question, and come back when you're ready. Isabel Thomas described the moth's wings as salt and pepper because we all know what salt and pepper is and what it looks like. It's light and dark. However, we might not have all seen a peppered coloured moth, and we might not know what it actually looks like. So describing it as salt and pepper helps to create a better image of what it looks like in our minds and add to our understanding. Why don't peppered moths hide on pale trees? Okay, so the answer to this question is all about camouflage. Think about why. What would happen if a peppered moth did hide on a pale tree? Pause the video and come back when you're ready. So, peppered moths don't hide on pale trees because peppered moths are dark in colour, and so that means they would show up very much on a pale tree, which means they had a bigger chance of getting eaten by predators. Next question then. How did the world change and how did this affect the moths? Again, this would probably be a 3-mark question because we're looking at comparisons. We're looking at what the world was like, what happened, and how it affected the moths. Take this into consideration when you are answering your question. See if you can get all 3 points into your answer. Pause the video and come back when you're ready. So in the story, there are a couple of changes that happen to the world. The first change is the Industrial Revolution, when people built factories and there was a lot more pollution. This change affected the moths because the light-coloured moths now couldn't camouflage as well, so they got eaten by predators. So it was the darker peppered-coloured moths that survived. Later on in the story, the world changed again because people realised the effect pollution had on the world and decided to clean it up, which means that pollution went away and there wasn't as much, which means now that both moths had a chance to camouflage themselves and survive. What change did you use in your answer? Let's move on. So the final task is for you to take some time on. I want you to use the text to explain how animals adapt to the environment and how this might change what an animal is like. Think about the learning we did on Charles Darwin as well to help you with this answer. What evidence can you find in the text for evolution? I look forward to reading your answers when I get your learning packs back. See you tomorrow.